They say you shouldn't meet strangers from the internet. I used to roll my eyes at those warnings. After all, we live in a world where everyone is a swipe or a click away. But now, I'm not so sure. It all started with an app, just a harmless dating app. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to grab coffee with and maybe share a laugh. His name was Marcus. He had a friendly smile, dark curly hair, and a bio that read, "Coffee lover, dog dad, and seeker of life's little adventures." We matched on a Wednesday evening. His first message was charming, but not over the top. "What's the best coffee shop in town?" I'm taking notes. We chatted back and forth for a couple of days. He seemed genuine, funny, and attentive. By Friday, we'd made plans to meet for coffee at a quaint cafe downtown. The day of the date, I was nervous, but excited. I picked a cozy sweater and jeans, casual but presentable. The cafe was busy when I arrived, filled with the hum of chatter and the clinking of mugs. Marcus texted me that he was on his way, and I found a small table near the window to wait. When he walked in, he looked just like his pictures. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with a confident stride. He spotted me, smiled, and waved. I felt a little flutter in my chest. He seemed normal. Safe. "Amelia?" he asked as he approached. "That's me," I said, standing to shake his hand. He laughed lightly. "No need to be so formal," he said, pulling me into a quick, friendly hug. His cologne was subtle but nice, a mix of woodsy and fresh. We ordered coffee and sat down. The conversation flowed easily. We talked about everything: favorite travel spots, embarrassing childhood stories, our mutual dislike for raisins and cookies. He was attentive, leaning in slightly when I spoke, and his laugh was genuine. About halfway through the date, he leaned back in his chair and grinned. "You're not like other people I've met on these apps," he said. I laughed. "Is that a good thing?" "It's a great thing," he replied. "Most people are so surface level. You're real." It was a nice compliment, but something about the way he said it made me feel like I was being watched too closely. I brushed it off. When we finished our coffee, Marcus suggested a walk. The cafe was near a park, and the crisp fall air was perfect for a stroll. I hesitated for a moment. I didn't know him well, but his easygoing demeanor put me at ease. The park was beautiful, with leaves crunching underfoot and golden light filtering through the trees. Marcus kept the conversation light, asking about my job and hobbies. But then, as we walked deeper into the park, he started steering the conversation in a different direction. "Do you ever think about how easy it is for people to disappear?" he asked suddenly. I stopped walking. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, looking off into the distance. "I just mean, with all the technology and noise in the world, it's strange how quickly someone can vanish without a trace." I laughed nervously, hoping it was a joke. "That's a little dark, don't you think?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "It's fine," I said, starting to walk again. "Just unexpected." We came across a bench near the edge of the park, and Marcus suggested we sit for a while. I agreed, though I felt my earlier excitement starting to fade. As we sat, Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You know," he said, "I don't usually meet people this quickly, but something about you felt different." I smiled weakly. "That's nice of you to say." "But it's true," he insisted. "I feel like I already know you. Like we were meant to meet." Alarm bells started ringing in my head. I tried to change the subject. "So, you said you have a dog. What kind of dog do you have?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "A lab mix. She's great. Loves hiking." The hesitation didn't sit right with me. It was like he'd forgotten he'd mentioned the dog before and was scrambling to come up with details. "Well, she sounds lovely," I said, standing up. "I should probably head back. It's getting late." Marcus stood too, his expression unreadable. "Of course. I'll walk you to your car." "Oh, that's okay," I said quickly. "It's just a short walk. I'll be fine." He smiled again, that same smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I insist." I didn't know how to say no without making it awkward, so I nodded and started walking back toward the cafe parking lot. Marcus kept pace beside me, silent for the first time since we'd met. When we reached the lot, I fumbled for my keys in my bag. "Thanks for the coffee and walk," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "It was nice meeting you." Before I could unlock my car, Marcus suddenly stepped closer. "Wait," he said softly. "I feel like we're just getting started." Before I could respond, he leaned in, trying to kiss me. I turned my head and took a step back. "Marcus, no. I'm not comfortable with that." His expression darkened. Without warning, he grabbed my arm, holding it tightly. "Come on," he said, his tone no longer friendly. "Don't be like that." "Let go!" I shouted, struggling to free myself. Panic surged through me as I twisted and pulled against his grip. He wouldn't let go, and his calm demeanor was gone, replaced by something unrecognizable and frightening. Summoning all my strength, I wrenched my arm free and stumbled backward. Without waiting another second, I turned and ran to my car. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and jumped inside, locking it behind me. As I started the engine, Marcus stood frozen in the lot, staring at me with a blank expression. I drove away as fast as I could, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. When I got home, I blocked his number and deleted the app. For weeks, I felt on edge, always looking over my shoulder. And maybe it was paranoia, but I started noticing a black sedan parked near my apartment building. A car I didn't recognize. One night, as I was coming home from work, I saw the car again. This time, it was idling near the entrance to my building. My heart raced as I hurried inside, locking the door behind me. I never saw Marcus again after that, but the experience changed me. I'm more careful now, more guarded. And I've learned that sometimes, the friendly stranger with the easy smile isn't as harmless as they seem. I should have listened to my gut. That's what they say, right? Always trust your instincts. But when you're single in your late 20s and your best friend swears she's found the perfect guy for you, you're willing to ignore that tiny voice in the back of your head. It all started with a text. Amy, my best friend, sent me a picture of a guy named Eric. He had an easy smile, dark brown hair, and these intense, piercing blue eyes. She'd met him through her boyfriend and was adamant he was a great guy. "He's funny, has a stable job, and he's into hiking just like you," she texted. I hesitated for a moment before replying, "Sure, why not?" The first red flag came almost immediately. Eric texted me the same evening, which was fine, but his message was a little off. "Hey there, stranger. Hope you're ready for the best date of your life. I've got something fun planned." It was confident, maybe a little too confident. Still, I convinced myself it was better than the usual "hey" or "what's up." We set a date for Friday night, and he asked if I'd be comfortable letting him pick me up. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Friday came, and Eric pulled up in a black SUV. He was punctual, which I appreciated. When I stepped outside, he got out of the car to open the passenger door for me. Polite, I thought. Maybe Amy was right about this guy. The first 10 minutes in the car were pleasant enough. We made small talk about work, favorite movies, and weekend hobbies. He laughed easily, and I started to relax. That is, until I realized we weren't heading toward any restaurants or movie theaters. "So, where are we going?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "It's a surprise," he said, flashing me a grin. Now, I like surprises as much as the next person, but there's a fine line between exciting and unnerving. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was 7:30, and the sun was starting to set. The city lights were fading behind us, replaced by stretches of dark, empty road. "You're not one of those guys who takes girls to the middle of nowhere to murder them, right?" I joked, forcing a laugh. "Of course not," he replied, his tone light. "You watch too many crime shows." But he didn't elaborate, and I noticed his hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than before. We eventually pulled into what looked like a parking lot for a hiking trail. It was deserted, which wasn't surprising given how late it was. "I thought you might like this," Eric said, stepping out of the car. "Fresh air, a little walk under the stars." I'll admit, the idea wasn't terrible. I loved hiking, and the night sky was beautiful out there, free from city lights. But something about the isolation made my skin crawl. Shouldn't we wait until it's, daylight? I asked. Trust me, he said, holding out his hand. Against my better judgment, I took it. The trail started off easy, with well-worn paths and wooden signs pointing the way. Eric chatted about his childhood and favorite books, and for a while, I started to feel silly for being so paranoid. But as we moved deeper into the woods, the path grew narrower, and the trees closed in around us. "This is where it gets good," Eric said, his voice taking on an edge of excitement. I'd like to say I turned around and walked back to the car right then and there, but I didn't. I followed him, every step feeling heavier than the last. After about 20 minutes, he stopped suddenly. "Here we are," he said, gesturing ahead. It was a clearing, surrounded by tall, looming trees. In the center was a makeshift picnic setup, a blanket, a basket, and a lantern casting a dim glow. "Okay, this is actually kind of sweet," I admitted, though my nerves hadn't entirely subsided. Eric's face lit up. "See? I told you it'd be worth it." We sat down, and he pulled out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I noticed he hadn't brought much else. No food, just the wine. Odd, but not necessarily alarming. We talked for a while, and I started to relax again. Maybe this guy wasn't so bad after all. But then something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, Eric grabbed my wrist. Hard. "Eric, what are you doing?" I said, my voice shaky. He leaned in, his expression eerily calm. "What if I told you this whole thing was just a setup? A little game to see how far I could push you?" I yanked my arm back, but his grip tightened. Panic surged through me as I struggled against him. "Eric, let go! This isn't funny!" I shouted. After what felt like an eternity, he released me and burst into laughter. "Relax! It's a joke, okay? Just messing with you. You should have seen your face." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "That wasn't funny, Eric." "Come on, don't be mad," he said, pouring another glass of wine like nothing had happened. "I was just trying to scare you a little." I didn't know what to say. My hands were trembling, and every instinct screamed at me to get out of there. But I forced myself to stay calm. "I think we should head back now," I said, my voice firm. "Already?" he asked, feigning disappointment. "All right, if you insist." The walk to the car was tense. Eric was quiet, his earlier cheerfulness replaced by something colder. I kept my phone in my hand, ready to call someone if needed. When we reached the car, he unlocked the doors, but instead of getting in, he stood by the driver's side, watching me. "You know, you're not like most girls," he said. "Thanks," I replied, trying to sound casual. "I mean it. Most people don't really get me. But you're different." I forced a smile. "That's nice of you to say." We got in the car, and the drive back was mostly silent. I could feel his eyes on me occasionally, but I kept my gaze fixed on the road ahead. When we finally pulled up to my apartment, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Thanks for tonight," I said, reaching for the door handle. "Wait," he said. "Can I see you again?" I hesitated. "Maybe. Let's talk tomorrow." His expression darkened for just a moment before he forced a smile. "Sure, tomorrow." I got out of the car and practically ran to my door. Once inside, I locked every lock and leaned against the door, my heart racing. That night, I blocked his number and called Amy to tell her what happened. She was shocked and apologized profusely, but I could tell she didn't fully grasp how unsettling the experience had been. For weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I'd catch glimpses of a black SUV in my neighborhood, but I told myself it was just my imagination. Eventually, the sightings stopped, and I started to feel normal again. But to this day, I can't go hiking without thinking about Eric and the clearing in the woods.